The first gut punch wasn't the demotion. It was watching Brent, the guy who once thought Kubernetes was a brand of bottled water, explaining her roadmap to a boardroom full of investors while she sat 2 rows back, pretending to care about the stale bagel tray. Natalie had bled into this company. No weekends, no sick days. Just cold brew, code, and that silent, bone-deep hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would finally say, "This whole damn platform holds together because of her." Instead, she got a junior dev rebranding her back-end work as Brent's modular cloud pivot. Then came the kill shot. Her admin access? Quietly revoked. No explanation. One morning, she woke up able to kill production servers. That same afternoon, she couldn't even restart a sandbox environment. Just a friendly little error message like a velvet rope in front of a club she built with her bare hands. Permission denied. It hadn't always been like this. Back when she joined, the office was part IKEA graveyard, part Post-it note jungle, and fully chaotic. The CTO used to hover behind her shoulder at 1:45 a.m., muttering, "If this payment gateway fails again, we can't make payroll tomorrow." Natalie fixed it. She fixed everything, built the entire staging pipeline from scratch, automated the test infrastructure, wrote documentation so tight it could pass a bar exam, patched the deployment bot that still pinged Slack at 7 a.m. daily. She was the invisible scaffolding that held up the whole operation. Once, the CEO had called her the ghost in the machine and handed her a $25 Amazon gift card like he was knighting her with corporate gratitude. Brent? Brent used to ping her every other day asking what rate limiting meant, and whether it was a networking term or a legal policy. Then came the new VP, Troy Langston. Fresh off some mid-tier CRM startup that flamed out during Series C. A walking thesaurus of buzzwords, LinkedIn quotes, and bad PowerPoint transitions. He rolled in with visions of reimagining scalable synergy, dismantled the roadmap in a week, and started scheduling meetings with titles like Next Gen Strategic Alignment. Natalie played along. At first, she gave him space, fixed his broken Trello board without a word, even formatted his quarterly deck so it wouldn't break in slideshow mode. But when she caught him removing her name from the architecture documentation and replacing it with Brent's, something clicked inside her. Not rage, not revenge. Design. She began to mirror everything she touched into a sandboxed AWS instance named Natalie Dev Archive. She forked the staging branch, locked it behind her own 2-factor authentication, and set retention policies like a forensic accountant. She wasn't stealing. She was preserving. For audit. For testing. For when this whole dumpster fire finally imploded and someone tried to point fingers. The moment was coming. Troy started slashing QA timelines. Brent parroted every term he overheard in staff meetings. Product velocity, feedback loop optimization, like he understood them. One day, Brent joked about renaming staging to Brent Cloud. Natalie smiled. "Cute. Just make sure Brent Cloud has backups." He laughed. Of course he did. So she stopped laughing and started building. The final straw? An invite. A strategy call about the Segura demo. Her architecture. Her code. Her documentation. She wasn't on the list. Brent was. Troy was. So were 2 sales guys and an intern who once asked if VPN was a Slack app. Natalie stared at the invite for a long time. Not angry, not sad, just done. That night, she poured herself a glass of wine, opened her personal Git repo labeled "Nobody Else Cares," and clicked push. Then she opened her resume. 4 years of blood, midnight deploys, and back-end miracles, reduced to 2 bullet points and a cold silence. She backed up her folders. One was labeled Segura Dry Run Final, set to auto-delete 90 days from that moment, enough time to keep things looking smooth. Just long enough to look like nothing had happened, until it did. Her smile that night was small. Not bitter, not triumphant, just quiet. She was no longer the ghost in the machine. She was the machine. The next day, Natalie stared at the prep call invite for the Segura demo like it had just insulted her IQ. Brent, Troy, a couple of sales guys, even the HR associate who once asked if Scrum was a new fitness trend. All on the list, but not her. She didn't slam her desk, didn't vent on Slack. She simply closed the calendar tab like a casket lid. Upstairs, the meeting started. She could hear Brent through the thin drywall regurgitating her architecture deck. Word for word. She recognized every bullet point, just flattened, dulled, like someone explaining Shakespeare with emojis. Our CI/CD pipeline is designed for rapid iteration with rollback agility. No, it wasn't. Not since Troy cut the canary testing step. The microservices are cleanly decoupled. Yeah. After Natalie rebuilt the architecture diagram 14 times to fix Brent's Post-it sketch, when she'd designed those blueprints, they looked like launch diagrams from NASA. Now? Now they were just kindergarten doodles labeled with corporate jargon. Troy called it simplifying for investor digestion. What it really meant was dumbing it down so Brent could survive a Q&A without imploding. She kept her face neutral, even nodded politely when Brent strutted out of the room like he'd just unlocked nuclear fusion. But something inside her went still. That kind of still you only recognize once the wind has left the building. That night, she stayed late. No music, no distractions. Just her fingers on the keyboard, steady and deliberate, like a surgeon preparing for something irreversible. She began syncing critical artifacts to a private cloud directory, labeled Testing Backup SAC, technically misleading, spiritually accurate, just a few harmless tar files, a few redundant config snapshots. Nothing flashy. No one noticed. Certainly not Troy, who was too busy rehearsing slide transitions for the investor deck like the fate of the company hinged on pixel-perfect fade-ins. Natalie wasn't angry anymore. Anger was messy, unpredictable. This was blueprint-level vengeance. Clean, surgical. She spun up a fresh AWS instance, completely isolated, tied to a payment method traceable only by subpoena or sorcery. Into that vault, she poured everything. Staging snapshots, CI/CD configs, OAuth tokens, dummy databases, and the soul of their pre-production environment. It was methodical, tidy, legal. The folder Segura Dry Run Final blinked into existence in the corner of her screen. Then she added a 90-day retention policy. No alert, no backup, no noise, just silence, with a countdown. Somewhere between commits, she laughed. Quietly, bitterly, like reading your own obituary and realizing it's kind of flattering. No one noticed, because when a woman in tech goes quiet, a certain kind of man stops hearing her entirely. And silence? Silence makes the perfect camouflage for deletion. The next morning, Troy walked around bragging about velocity. Brent was grinning about how he'd really connected with the Segura team. Some intern said, "Shouldn't we have looped Natalie into the demo?" "Huh?" someone replied. Then, nothing. That week, Brent asked Natalie to review his final Segura pitch deck. She did. "It looks great," she told him. And it did, if you liked watching a building made of wet napkins collapse in slow motion. She said nothing more, kept her AWS logs clean, didn't argue, didn't protest. Because when you build the foundation, you don't need to scream to watch it crumble. You just stop holding it up. The worst part wasn't the theft. It was the applause. Natalie sat 2 chairs away from the whiteboard as Brent stood center stage, sleeves rolled like he was delivering a baby instead of butchering a roadmap. Her roadmap, the one she had carved out over 3 months of whiteboard scribbles, missed dinners, and post-deploy whiskey. Now it had a new name, Strategic Product Evolution V2, complete with Brent's initials watermarked like a toddler signing crayon art. He clicked through the deck with smug faux humility, mispronouncing her terms. In Q3, we'll begin Phase 2 of modular gateway decompartmentalization. Decoupling, she corrected silently. Someone in the back nodded like Brent had just unlocked enlightenment. She sat frozen, watching every slide. The dates, milestones, layout, all hers. He hadn't even changed the color scheme. Just stripped out the notes where she'd written the technical reasoning and replaced them with words like North Star and Value Unlock. Then he landed on the final slide. A Gantt chart she had once lost sleep aligning across 6 time zones of cross-functional teams. Dependencies? Gone. Rationale? Gone. Just a roadmap as vibe. She didn't raise her hand, didn't call it out. She waited. The VP finished nodding like a bobblehead at a trade show, then opened the floor. Natalie's voice was calm, smooth as cold steel. "That's funny," she said. "That roadmap looks identical to the one I shared in January, right down to the Sprint 18 milestone. Same title, same typo in authorization." Silence fell over the room like someone had hit mute on reality. Brent blinked. The VP forced a chuckle. "Let's focus on collaboration, not credit." "Yeah," Brent said, squirming. "Alignment over ego." Natalie smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Brent stumbled through the last 2 slides, voice cracking just enough to betray him. She said nothing more. At home that night, she pulled out her ThinkPad, the one from the early days. Stickers peeling like old paint, fans wheezing like a tired dog, but it booted. Inside was a folder labeled "Nobody Else Cares." She hadn't opened it in years. It held the first iteration of her original codebase, before the sprints, before the meetings, before Brent. She stared at it for a while, then clicked. It felt like touching the edge of sanity. Code that was clean, untouched by committee, untouched by ego. She didn't fork it yet, not officially. She just started reworking modules that had long been bloated by other people's ignorance. She poured herself a drink. Neat, no ice, no filler, and she coded. Somewhere around 1:00 a.m., she renamed the README file, README Final V2, but actually Final MD. The next day, she joined the daily sync, smiled as Brent asked her to backfill the logic on a slide he didn't understand. She took notes while Troy rattled off some nonsense about moving fast and breaking things. Funny, she thought. That's exactly what I plan to do. That afternoon, she opened a new private repo. Nobody Else Cares Rebuild Visibility Private Access 1. User, commit message, reclaiming the wheel. The first line of code was just a shell, but sometimes all you need is a shell to build a bomb. The meeting was set for 3:15 p.m. on a Tuesday, that sleepy mid-afternoon time slot where caffeine fails and ambition flatlines. Natalie arrived on the dot, hair tied back, coffee in hand, laptop closed like a sealed file. Calm, precise, surgical. Troy swaggered in 7 minutes late with a plastic smile and half a granola bar, as if she should be grateful he even showed up. "Natalie," he said, dragging her name like it owed him rent. "What's up?" She didn't waste time. "I'd like to formally request a title change, Director of Engineering. I've been leading cross-functional initiatives for over a year. Architecture, deployments, incident response. Here's a breakdown of the responsibilities I'm already handling versus what's typical at peer companies." She slid a single-page printout across the table. Clean, objective, unarguable. Troy didn't even glance at it. He leaned back in his chair like he was auditioning for Venture Capitalist the Musical. "We don't negotiate with staff," he said, tone flat. Not cruel, not angry, just dismissive. The way you close a browser tab or delete a spam email promising one weird trick. Natalie nodded. Got it. Troy blinked. That's it? Yep. He smiled like he'd just won something. Glad we're aligned. She stood. No dramatics, no exit line. Just the quiet decision of someone done sacrificing pieces of herself for people who didn't deserve her time. She didn't go back to her desk. She went straight to the HR portal, scheduled an off-cycle exit meeting for the next morning, and opened a blank document titled Resignation Letter Final Dated. Docs X Simple. 2 weeks notice. Final day. The morning of the Segura demo. She stared at the date for a moment, then smiled. Not wide, not smug. Just the kind of smile you give the mirror when you realize you're finally walking away from a party that stopped being fun 3 drinks ago. Then came the quiet part. She flipped open her dev console and pulled up the credential set labeled Stage, Master, Key. It was an old token, issued back when the infrastructure still trusted her. Back when people did. She scrolled to the expiration field and added a new parameter. Expires at equivalent demo day plus 2 minutes, not sabotage. Not a bomb, just absence. Legal. Documented. Invisible to anyone not actively looking. And no one was. She wrapped it in a commit labeled System Note, Rotating Credential. Comment, Short TTL for security hygiene. Standard procedure. Except it wasn't short. It was precise. Exactly 2 minutes into the live Segura demo. Just enough time for the first few slides. The product walkthrough. The initial wow moment. And then, darkness. She closed the tab, logged out, went home, made dinner. Nothing fancy. Just leftover pasta and a glass of red wine that had been breathing since Sunday. Watched an old sitcom, folded laundry, pet the cat. Serene. Logan, Brent, messaged her that night. Hey, can you ghost review the Segura slide deck? Just want to be sure it's clean. Thanks. She typed back. Sure thing. Looking forward to it. Then muted the thread. There was nothing left to fix. She wasn't staying to save them. She was just staying long enough to leave clean. 14 days, that's all. 2 weeks from that moment, she'd be a ghost they couldn't summon and couldn't replace. Her resignation landed in HR's inbox like a feather into a canyon. Quiet, invisible, promptly ignored. 2 days later, an intern she didn't know showed up with a beige manila folder. Hey, Natalie, I was told to, collect your signature for exit processing. No handshake, no farewell. Just toner-smudged boilerplate paperwork and a pen that barely worked. She signed without reading. HR sent her a calendar invite. Subject, Natalie T. Separation wrap-up. Not even her full name. Separation. Like she was a piece of furniture being removed from the office floor plan. Troy didn't say a word. Walked past her twice that week like she was a fern. On Thursday, he even asked Brent if the infra cleanup ticket was ready for handoff. Brent nodded like he had any idea what infra cleanup meant. Natalie just watched, silent, steady, like a surgeon watching someone attempt heart surgery with salad tongs. They were all too busy prepping for the Segura demo. Investors were flying in. The valuation talk was peaking. The buzz was palpable. Slide decks were being updated. Fonts debated. The product? Stable, thanks to Natalie. The pipeline? Smooth, thanks to Natalie. The staging environment? Still live, because she hadn't revoked access. Yet. She walked the halls with the composure of someone who already knew the ending. She didn't yank wires. She didn't crash systems. She documented, but not the helpful kind. She wrote handoff guides that looked pristine at first glance, folder structures labeled clearly, screenshots included, bullet points clean, Slack emoji energy everywhere. But she rewrote the service account walkthrough with one step out of order. Swapped 2 environment variables in the deploy script. Mentioned a non-existent dashboard called Stage Eyes and described it like it was mission critical. Brent nodded when she mentioned it aloud. Stage Eyes, right. I was going to ask you about that. She scrubbed her name from all comment headers, replaced useful instructions with cryptic placeholders like #core handler, do not edit until it's too late. She deleted her README Notes folder, replaced it with a new folder titled README Notes Final. Inside, just one file. You cannot ghost what you do not know. Text. No one noticed. No one asked. She spent her final week packing like someone getting ready for a vacation no one else knew about. Plant by plant, file by file. Her desk slowly emptied. Her Git history quietly erased. When people asked how handoff prep was going, she smiled and said, "Almost done." On Friday, someone brought cupcakes for Segura Week. Brent offered her one with blue frosting and a half smile. "Hey, thanks again for all the demo help. I know you're wrapping up, but we're in a great spot now." She took the cupcake, bit into it like communion. That evening, she pulled the last thread. In her AWS console, she watched the Segura dry run final token ticking toward expiration like a timer in a locked room. Still valid, still holding. She didn't touch it. She didn't need to. The code was clean. The trap was set. All that was left now was to walk out smiling and wait for them to realize the scaffolding they'd ripped out was the only thing still holding up the roof. Friday morning, 8:03 a.m. Natalie walked into the office carrying a box of donuts like it was any other day. No final bow, no vengeance monologue, just a white cardboard dozen, slightly warm, jelly already bleeding through the bottom. She set them down in the break room next to the burnt coffee pot and scribbled on a sticky note, "Happy Demo Day." Then she turned and walked the floor one last time. The energy was frantic. Investors were on their way. PowerPoints flickered across monitors. Someone was arguing about font size on the title slide. Brent was pacing by the elevator, rehearsing phrases like market vertical and early adoption curve under his breath like startup incantations. No one looked at her twice. Perfect. She returned to her desk. Only one plant left, a snake plant, practically immortal. She wrapped it in an old hoodie and tucked it under her arm. Her backpack was zipped, laptop inside, charger coiled. No post-it notes left behind. No mug in the sink. No trace. At 8:36 a.m., she shut down her work email. Slack auto-logged out. GitHub pinged a soft 403 when she checked her credentials. Clean, all clean. She walked one final loop, half out of habit, half out of something deeper. This was the office where she'd debugged outages at 2 a.m., where she'd slept under her desk during Series B funding week, where she'd built things that worked until the people around them stopped working with her. She passed Brent. He gave her a nervous nod, mouth half full of frosting. "Hey, thanks again for the docs. Think I'm all set for the walkthrough." "You are," she replied, then added, "and you're not." Her last stop was Troy's office. He was in there alone, sleeves rolled, staring at his reflection in the black screen of the wall-mounted monitor like it owed him a promotion. Natalie leaned against the doorway, just slightly. 2-minute warning for the Segura demo, she said casually, like she was reading off the weather. Troy looked up, chuckled. "Still bitter, huh?" Her smile was almost kind. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned, walked back to her desk, and left her badge, plastic frayed lanyard and all, neatly centered. Next to it, her company-issued laptop, closed. Charger coiled like a nap-ready snake. She walked out. No one followed. No applause. Not even a Slack emoji wave. The front door clicked softly behind her as it latched shut. Cold morning air greeted her like a baptism. She took one breath, then another. Steady. Still. Then came the tremble, that faint, electric flicker of adrenaline that only comes when something isn't just over. It's finished. A text pinged her phone. "Your offboarding session has been canceled. Please contact HR if rescheduling is needed. She deleted it without reading the rest. Natalie turned the corner, dropped her hoodie-wrapped plant in the trunk, slid into the driver's seat, and paused. She tapped open her phone one last time. AWS dashboard. Status: Segura Sul Dry Run Final expires in 000213. Right on schedule. The wheel was out of her hands now. And the road behind her? Already on fire. 10:02 a.m. The boardroom lights were dimmed just enough to feel expensive. A long table that cost more than Natalie's car reflected the polished shoes of the company's so-called leadership. On one side, the executive team, Troy, the CTO, the CEO, a couple of nervous product managers. On the other, Segura Capital, cold-eyed venture partners in minimalist glasses, still and silent like predators waiting for the first drop of blood. Brent stood at the head of the table, his blazer one size too big, hair slicked like a high school debate captain. His voice cracked as he launched in. Let's walk through a real-time simulation of the new architecture rollout. This staging environment is a perfect mirror of what we deploy at scale. He clicked the remote. Nothing happened. He clicked again. Still nothing. A second passed. Then another. Someone cleared their throat. On screen, a frozen loading icon, a mock dashboard banner. No data. No charts. Just an interface gasping for breath. Brent's smile faltered. Probably just a little latency spike. The CTO was already opening his laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard. His face went pale after 4 keystrokes. He looked up. The staging environment isn't there. Troy turned. What do you mean, not there? I mean it's gone. No active instance. No mirror. No failover. It's like someone pulled the plug. The CEO leaned forward. Do we have a backup? The CTO didn't answer right away, just stared at the screen like it had betrayed him. Brent muttered, Maybe it's a permissions issue? We could ping Natalie? No. Troy cut him off, trying to laugh like this was still salvageable. She's gone. We've got her documentation. The CTO finally looked at him. No, we don't. We have a guide that reads like a BuzzFeed listicle. I checked the configs last night. The last real push was over a month ago, and the access token expired 12 minutes ago. Silence. Click. One of the Segura partners tapped a pen on the table. Click. A voice from the back. Wasn't Natalie running infra? Another, older. She was the infra. That's when the panic set in. Troy grabbed his phone. The CEO leaned back, arms crossed, expression carved in stone. Redundant, huh? The CEO said, eyes locked on Troy. I didn't mean she... But it was too late. The CTO turned his laptop around to face them. On the screen, commit history. Clean. Precise. Final. Token deprecation. Config removal. Access rotation. Each signed. NT final exit. Each time stamped. 10 a.m. sharp. Each legal. Documented. Undeniably deliberate. Troy stepped back like distance could save him. I thought she was bluffing. No, the CEO replied. She was documenting. Outside the boardroom, Slack threads started lighting up red. Errors. 404's deployment alerts. No one could acknowledge them. No one knew what to fix, because the person who built it was gone. The kingdom hadn't burned. It had been unplugged, cleanly, elegantly, silently. The board meeting that afternoon felt more like a sentencing. No catered lunch, no keynote optimism, just silence and sweat under halogen lights. The CTO spoke quietly, like he was confessing to a priest. No backups. No rebuild possible before Q2, not without Natalie. He paused. There were warnings. Slack threads. Docs she shared. No one replied. Screens lit up with pinned messages from 6 months ago. We need a succession plan. Only one person has full access to staging. This violates every redundancy protocol. They ignored her. Now they couldn't replace her. Segura Capital quietly pulled out. No drama, no shouting, just a terse email and a closed notebook. Later that evening, VC group chats buzzed like a hive on fire. Staging meltdown. She walked. No redundancy. Ghost in the machine. Red Wolves cooked. Far away, far enough that ocean waves drowned out every Slack ping. Natalie sat under an umbrella. Drink in hand, laptop shut. Her phone buzzed. 17 unread emails, 8 from recruiters, 3 from old colleagues, 1 from her landlord, and 1 at the very top. Subject, principal role, discreet inquiry. Saw what happened. You available? No interviews. It's yours if you want it. She stared at it for a moment, then archived it. She didn't need revenge. She already won. And for the first time in 4 years, Natalie smiled.